Welcome to Social Antipasti Podcast with Paolo Fabrizio.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Social Antipasti Podcast. Welcome to this episode. I will be speaking about customer experience, but I won't be alone this time. In fact, I have a very special guest today with me, so let's go.
Use social customer service to stand out from your competitors.
Welcome back. Today, I've got Annette Franz from United States. Hi, Annette. How are you?
Hello, Paolo. I am great. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. So good to hear from you. And the very first thing I'd like to do is to let you introduce yourself. So my question is, who is Annette Franz? So tell us about yourself and what you do.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to finally get to talk to you and to be a part of this conversation. So, I am. That's a great question. I am a customer experience consultant. I've been in this customer experience space for the last 20 plus years. I started my career at J.D. Power and Associates in the early 1990s, when customer experience wasn't even, the catchphrase or the phrase of the day or the way that we describe what we're doing today. Back then the conversation was around customer satisfaction, customer loyalty, and now we know that there's so much more than that. And so it's been an interesting evolution over the last 20 plus years. And I'm really excited to, take everything that I've learned, both about the customer experience and the employee experience, and share it with my readers and share it with my colleagues. Right now, I am a director of customer outcomes for Fidelity Investments. I have ventured over into the client side after 20 plus years on the vendor/partner side, and taking some of what I've, learned over the years and helping an organization, improve their customer experience. So I'm excited about that.
Wow, that's a very interesting story. Yes, you mentioned customer experience, which is a very, very common words to be heard today, but
Yes.
that's something that we're talking about something that sounds very familiar today, but until a few years ago, social customer service or customer experience were just something not very common by any kind of professional. And that's very interesting. But back to our topic today, to customer experience. Imagine, Annette, you're talking to somebody who doesn't know anything about customer experience. How would you define it as simple as you can?
The easiest way to really define customer experience is that it's the sum of all of the interactions that a customer has with a brand over the life of the, quote unquote, relationship with that brand. And I think that includes things like price and product and any other touch that the customer has with the brand.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a tweet. Very, very sharp and effective and very clear. I think not only to me, but also for our audience. That's very, very good. And do you think that customer experience is important for any industry? If so, why?
Absolutely. I think it comes down to a very simple reason, and that is
Uh-huh.
the Drucker definition of the purpose of a business, right? And the purpose of a business is to create and to nurture customers. Without customers, we don't have a business, and without a great customer experience, customers are going to go away. They won't stay. They won't want to do business with us. And it really is, boils down to being as simple as that. So any type of business really does need to focus on the customer experience. It's how the business is going to sustain itself and grow.
Yeah, that's very interesting. In fact, there is a sort of a customer awareness, okay, these years, and it's very interesting to realize how brands, or to see or to observe how brands have realized the importance of customer satisfaction in order to acquire and retain them. So another question for you, Annette. In your LinkedIn bio, you say that customer experience is an ever-evolving journey. Can you please explain this concept from a brand's perspective?
Absolutely, absolutely. It is an ever evolving journey. First, in the sense that it's a journey in terms of what it takes to actually transform the experience, right? So, organizationally, it really takes a long time. It takes baby steps, and when an organization is trying to transform the customer experience, they're going to just take these steps and the don't want to say the problem, but the problem is the problem is that as we're taking these steps,
Uh-huh.
other things are happening that there are emerging trends, there are changing customer needs, there are all these things that we're learning and discovering as we take these steps that we're constantly iterating and reiterating and changing the experience and evolving the experience over time. So it's never just fix it and move on to something else,
Hmm.
because customers' needs are changing, the organization is changing, our products are changing, the way we do business changes, all of
Yeah.
those things are changing. And so as that mix of things are changing, we're constantly evolving the customer experience, and that's why I look at it as a journey. And the other thing is,
Yeah.
we should never really rest on our laurels, even if we get to that point where we believe that we've got the best customer experience in the world. We
Hmm.
should never just say, I'm done, right? It never ends. It really doesn't. We should always be striving to do better, always.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. In fact, technology have accelerated any kind of change so
Yep,
that any very good results achieved by company may be affected by new technologies or new customers' expectations or
absolutely.
behaviors. That's
Yep,
why we always need to try to do our best and be flexible in terms of person and or organizations as well.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So, what brands have to do, Annette, in order to deliver a great customer experience? I know this is a very generic question, okay,
Well, it's
but please help me or help us.
it's also one of those questions where I go, well, how much time do we have, right? There's really
Yeah,
short answer, but I'll try to sum it up in a few major steps, a few major things that we need to do.
awesome.
So, in no particular order, although I'll come back and I'll tell you one of the most important things, or the most important thing that you need to do, in terms of all of what I'm going to share.
Yeah.
So, first of all, we need to understand our customers, right? We need to understand who they are, what they're trying to do,
Mhm.
and really learn about our customers. The next thing that I would do is once we know who our customers are and what they're trying to do, map the journeys of the things that they're trying to do with our organization. Yeah, I've said a lot in my blog posts and other interviews and podcasts and webinars, that you can't transform something you don't understand. So we really
Yeah.
have to understand the customer, and we need to understand what they're trying to do, and we need to understand the experience that they're having today before we can change the experience and redesign the customer experience to something that is a great customer experience, right? And we need to listen to our customers. We need to make sure that we're listening to them throughout their journey. We need to ensure that we're listening to customers at those key moments of truth where those make or break points in the relationship, in a transaction. We need to make sure that we really understand what's happening there. So we need to get feedback from them, and we need to monitor their changing needs and their desired outcomes and what they're doing, because as we just talked about earlier, customers' needs are changing and evolving over time, and so we need to really be aware of that, so that we can design an experience that meets their needs. But taking it back a step for a second, the
Hmm.
most important thing that an organization needs to do before they undertake any type of, customer experience transformation initiative is to get executive buy-in and executive commitment. If we don't have that commitment from leadership at the top of the organization, this transformation, the ability to deliver a great customer experience is never going to happen, because these folks are the folks who are going to, drive the culture of, customer, making customer making customers a priority, they're also the ones who are in charge of the resources, right? And allotting and aligning the resources with the effort that we're going to be putting forth. So that's human resources, capital resources, whatever resources that we need to transform the experience. So we really do need to have that executive commitment to the initiative and to the overall culture transformation, because that's what it's going to be. And as we talk about culture transformation, we also need to make sure that we think about our employees and put our employees first, and focus on having a great employee experience, because we also know that the employee experience drives the customer experience. Without employees, we don't have a customer experience. They're the ones who deliver it, so we need to make sure we focus on them. We need to make sure that we outline and communicate our vision and our strategy, right? So, we have this customer experience vision that needs to align with the corporate vision, the corporate strategy as well. And we need to make sure that we have that clearly defined and clearly communicated to the organization. We'll want to create a governance structure within the organization, and that's a team of cross-functional leads and stakeholders who are going to make sure that once we understand the customers and once we are listening to customers, that the feedback that we're getting is acted on and it's delivered to the people who actually need to act on it. So those are just some of the things.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't sound like a major undertaking at all, but again, going back to why it's a journey, it's baby steps, right? None of this stuff happens overnight.
Yes.
It's really years and years in the making, but you need to have the right framework or lay the right groundwork to actually be successful.
Thank you very much for this great answer. I was listening carefully when you mentioned employee commitment, okay?
Yes.
And also executive commitment. I think that the first one is crucial in order to let and convince employees to be involved as for customer experience. But I think that also for you, one of the biggest hurdle is to convince the C-level, right? The executives. Yes. So how is it possible to persuade or convince the executive that customer experience is crucial for the future of the brand?
There are several different ways. It's not easy, again.
Yeah, definitely.
But, most of our executives are focused on the numbers, right? They are focused on, they're data driven, and they're focused on shareholder value instead of, maximizing shareholder value rather than focusing on the customer and customer experience. And so what we need to do is a couple of different things. We need to appeal to the two sides of their brains, right? So we need to appeal to the rational side, and we need to appeal to the emotional side. So on the rational side, these are the numbers folks, the numbers side, right? And so from that perspective, the best thing to do is really to build your business case. And this is, again, I'll just repeat it again, baby steps. Maybe I need to change my perspective from journey to from journey to baby steps. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I'll rename my blog CX Baby Steps. Yes.
That would be great.
But it's about, picking some pet project or some start somewhere and start small and build your business case by listening to customers, making those improvements, showing the ROI. I hate to say that, showing the ROI, showing what you can do and what's possible, and the impact on your customers, and then ultimately for your executives, the impact on the business as well. So from a rational side, that's it, right? We need to have the data to back up what we're doing. Right. From the emotional side, it's about sharing customer stories and telling the story and helping executives understand and walk in the customer's shoes, right? And so that can be done a couple of different ways. So journey mapping is one tool to help executives walk in customer shoes. Doing your own sort of undercover, if you've ever watched Undercover Boss, doing sort of your own undercover executive type of thing where the executive goes and does the job of an employee to see what the employee is doing, and to also see what the customer is experiencing as a result of our policies and processes and procedures, and then sharing customer stories. I think that's a great way to really help them hear the voice and the pain and the delight. It's not all bad, right? But hear some of hear some of those things right from the customer so that they can put it all together and say, okay, all right, this makes sense. It's not as easy as I make it sound, but there are ways to do it. You just have to build your case.
Yeah. Of course, it takes time, and to wrap it up, it's a mix of rational and emotional baby steps,
Yes.
right? It's a little by little based on real customer stories
Yes.
to testify what customers experienced, what customers think about the brand, which is important. At the same time, provide executives with numbers so that show how effective is the actions taken. Right.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right.
Excellent. Annette, in your article on CX journey, treat employees better than customers. So we're back to the relationship between customers and brands. You put employees first, then customers.
Yep.
So why do you consider building a great customer experience a priority?
Well, a great customer experience or a great employee experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, again, like I mentioned earlier, the employees are the ones who deliver the customer experience, right? They are, without employees, we don't have a customer experience. And if employees are not happy, if they're not engaged, if they don't have the tools and the resources that they need to do their jobs, if their jobs require too much effort, if they're not empowered to deliver a great experience, then really the customer suffers. Because think about, a job that you ever did where you just weren't happy or you weren't engaged or you didn't feel like you could do your job well. And then think about how you would interact with somebody standing in front of you on that day. If you're miserable, it's going to translate to what you're, we can't separate that from what we're doing, right? And so we as managers and as leaders, we need to make sure that that we listen to our employees, that we do something with their feedback, that we improve their experience, because like I said, ultimately they're the ones who drive and who deliver, the customer experience, and talk to the customer and work with the customer every day. And if they're grumpy, then that will come across to their customers, and customers experience that. So
Yeah. Thank you. So we're almost to the end of our conversation. 2016 is here, we can say that. What are your next projects?
Well, that's a really good question. I have something in mind, and if I throw it out in the universe, does that mean that that I actually have to do it in 2016? I think I do. So maybe I just need to throw it out there. I started a book earlier this year, and I had some challenges throughout 2015, and I said, come January, I need to just put it all behind me and sit down and just work on the book. So I'm going to say a book with a question mark after it.
That's great. That's a great challenge. I can tell you because I just, as you know, I just issued my very first one last month, and I worked it on summer, and it's, well, I don't know if it's your first one, but as for myself, it was the very first one, and it took a while for me to write. Couple of months.
Other than one that I wrote back in the third grade, that was, I think, 10 pages. I think this one's going to be a little bit more challenging, so I may look to you for some advice on this for sure.
All right, so that's a very good project for next year, for 2016. Finally, tell us, where can we find you online?
Oh, sure. So my blog is CX Journey, which is at www.cx-journey.com, or on Twitter at Annette Franz. And my other contact information is on my website as well. So, but at Annette Franz is my Twitter handle.
Great. I think that all our audience will appreciate, and will get in touch with you very, very soon. So thank you very much for Annette. First, it was a pleasure to have you as a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm so happy about this conversation. Thank you very much to all our audience. I remember that you can subscribe to my podcast on iTunes and also on Spreaker.com. And this podcast will be embedded in my LinkedIn post, okay, so that you can also read the highlights of this great conversation with Annette. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.